What's up, guys? I'm Cody Fleming, and welcome back to another episode. If you guys aren't already, make sure to go and subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date with any of my new episodes and content. And if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure to go down and give this video a thumbs up. Without further ado, let's jump right into today's video. Alright, so this past year I was lucky enough to draw an elk tag for a unit out in Arizona. It's a unit that's kind of not really popular, I guess you could say. It's not really one of the ones that are sought after. But either way, I was lucky enough to draw a tag. I had a certain amount of points, and I ended up getting the tag. So what we ended up doing is driving all the way out to Arizona. It was me, my dad, and then my buddy Nathaniel. And on the way out, you're seeing all different types of terrain. You know, you're seeing everything from long valleys to high, dry mountains. It's a pretty cool thing to see. And it's just miles and miles of openness. You know, you're not seeing houses or anything like that. But either way, it's this long dirt road that goes for miles and miles and miles. It was almost like a campsite type of thing. So you pull off into kind of like almost like where you'd set up for a camper or tent or something like that. And that's where we ended up staying. So we finally got to the camp, you know, and then we got all set up. We got our gear around, our hiking boots and everything like this. And what our guide had is he had a really souped up side-by-side. When I say side-by-side, I mean this thing was intense, but you know, it could crawl over any of those rocks, those big boulders, anything like that. We could get to some of those spots that, you know, you'd have a hard time just covering in one day or driving with anything else. But so what we did is we drive a little ways and walk for a couple miles. And what we ended up doing that night is we got out and walked for a little bit just to see if we could find anything. So after a while of walking, we actually did come across a really nice bull. And you know, we look over in this valley, and here he is down here, just kind of grazing along. And it's getting late, so we figured we'd watch him bed down, head back to camp, and then regroup in the morning and try to go after him. And then sadly, when we looked to our left, there was already guys that had gotten to that spot. So what we ended up doing is, you know, we watched him for a little bit that night. We let those guys have that bull so that they could, you know, we didn't want to argue with them or anything like that, so we ended up going back to camp and then regrouping in the morning. And so the next morning we got up really early, you know, started hiking in an area where we thought there was some potential to find a nice bull elk. But what we ended up doing is we got set up in this kind of a dish, and we were looking across the other side so we could see if any come walking across, you know, hoping that maybe something would walk out. After a couple hours of sitting, we did end up seeing a few cow elk come out. Some pretty big ones, but we were only there for the bull elk. We only had a bull tag. So we just kind of watched them graze for a bit, and then that was pretty much all we saw for that day. Yeah, we watched these cow elk graze for a little bit. It's pretty cool to see them just like this, you know. It may not be the elk that we were after, but it's just cool to see these guys off walking on the sides of these steep hills and everything like that, walking through this terrain that, you know, you don't normally see. So it's just kind of neat to see these guys doing it like they would any other day. But for the most part, that's all we saw that day. You know, we were camped out for a good chunk of the day, just sitting there waiting for more to come out. But all those cows were all that we ended up seeing. And so the day after that, we ended up coming out, and we came across these three bull, right? They were walking at a pretty fast pace along this other ridge that we passed the other day. And we watch them go over, you know, we're trying to position, seeing if we can get a good shot. And before we know it, they're gone, long gone. So naturally, we pick up our stuff, and we go to another spot, you know. It's about midday at this point. We're kind of walking along. And then there's this really deep valley, right? We look down, and you can't even hardly see the bottom. We look across, and we see antler movement. Come to find out, it's a couple bull elk, and one of them's actually a pretty nice one. So what we end up doing is we glassed them for a little bit, decided, you know, this was the one we wanted to go after. what we had my buddy Nathaniel do is he sat still with the camera off to the side, and we kind of got around him so we could get a little bit closer to him. And we're watching him for a little bit, waiting to make sure that we're going to shoot the biggest one. And, you know, we're glassing. We got as close as we could. It ended up being an 800-yard shot. And for those of you that want to be particular, it was like 797.5, I believe, something like that. But either way, an 800-yard shot is what we ranged it at. So what I ended up having to do is get set up on this boulder. You know, I got position. The guy that was with us, he had everything tuned in. He's like, hey, with the wind doing this, you're going to have to aim here and all that good stuff. And you're pretty nerved up because, you know, you finally came across this elk that's a shooter. You've been walking all day. You don't want to mess it up. So when you're getting set up, you know, you want to make sure that you've got a really sturdy rest, you know, that you can make a good, clean shot, you know, because this could be it. Who knows when we'll come across another elk that's good enough to shoot. And just the fact of how far you'll be shooting is also another reason why it's a little nerve-wracking. So, you know, you're sitting there. The guide's telling me all these things. He's getting his gun dialed in, you know. He's telling me with the wind going this miles per hour of where I need to hold. You know, ended up telling me a spot, and I got held up on it. You know, I'm taking deep breaths, getting my heart rate down so that I don't pull the shot or anything like that. And finally, he gets into this good spot, and then I finally pulled the trigger. After that shot, it's a completely different feeling than I can compare to anything. Watching that bull elk drop right in its tracks from that far away, you know, you literally hear the shot, you're watching elk, you're like, why didn't he move? Why didn't he drop or anything? And then, like, it felt like a minute later, it was realistically a couple seconds, then he drops. It was such a far shot that, you know, the bullet didn't have time to catch up to the sound. So that's actually kind of neat, too. But yeah, I was super excited at this point, and I couldn't be happier. The only issue with the shot is how far away it was. Like I said, we had to climb down this really, really steep hill. More of a trench, I don't even know what you want to call it, but you know, there's thorns, there's rocks, you're slipping over stuff everywhere. It's just a really, really hard hike, you know, and to get to this other side. Not only once you get down to the bottom, you have to walk all the way up the other side to get to the elk. That's good.
Thank you. How are we getting up there? Oh my God, don't worry. Look at the size of it. That's insane. Oh my God, that's awesome. Look at this. Look where it's busted off. That's freaking awesome.
It was a pretty big deal for me, you know, from all the work that had to go into this, from the hiking and the camping to the shot. Every part of it was, no part of it was really all that easy. It was a pretty hard hunt, and I'm just really glad that I got to do it. Just being able to see the country was cool in itself.
We could get this little tree out of the way. That's crazy.
Alright guys, so this is going to be the end of today's video. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see. If you like this style video, make sure, you know, give me a comment. If you guys like more fishing, bow fishing, whatever kind of videos you guys want, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And I'll make sure to try to do more of those. But this is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.